The rain hammered against the windows of St. Andrew's Cathedral in Lagos as I clutched my black ochre dress, watching them lower my husband's casket into the red earth. Tears mixed with raindrops on my cheeks, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. Buzz. My phone vibrated in my purse. I almost ignored it. Who would text during a funeral? But something made me look. Private number. I'm alive. Don't trust anyone. Especially not my brother. Meet me at our spot tonight. Chike. My heart stopped. The phone slipped from my trembling fingers, clattering onto the wet concrete. The mourners around me, Chike's family, our friends, his business partners, they all kept weeping, kept throwing flowers onto his coffin. But I couldn't breathe. What would you do if you walked in on this? Hit like if you've been betrayed, and comment below where you're watching from. My name is Adana Okafor, and 3 days ago, I thought I was a widow. 3 days ago, I watched paramedics pull my husband Chike's mangled body from his Mercedes after what the police called a tragic accident on the 3rd Mainland Bridge. 3 days ago, I held his cold hand in the hospital and said goodbye to the man I'd loved for 8 years, the father of my 6-year-old daughter Kemi. But dead men don't send text messages. Mama, why are you shaking? Kemi tugged at my dress, her big brown eyes filled with confusion. At 6 years old, she barely understood why Daddy wasn't coming home anymore. How could I explain that he might actually be alive? Nothing, baby, I whispered, bending down to pick up my phone. Mama just dropped something. Chike's older brother, Emeka, approached us with his wife Ngozi. In his expensive black suit and designer sunglasses, Emeka looked every inch the successful businessman he claimed to be. He'd been handling all the funeral arrangements, taking care of the finances, being the strong shoulder everyone expected him to be. But now, looking at him, all I could think about was that text message. Don't trust anyone, especially not my brother. Adana, you look pale, Emeka said, placing his hand on my shoulder. Are you all right? This has been so hard on all of us. I studied his face, searching for any sign of deception. Emeka had always been kind to me, helping Chike expand his import business, being the uncle who spoiled Kemi with expensive toys and trips to the amusement park. But the concern in his voice now sounded different, almost too practiced. I'm fine, I lied, clutching my phone tighter. Just tired. The funeral reception was held at the Transcorp Hilton, where Lagos's elite gathered to pay their respects. Business partners spoke about Chike's integrity and vision. Friends shared memories of his generosity and charm. But as I sat at the head table, watching these people eat jollof rice and talk about my supposedly dead husband, the text message burned in my mind. Our spot. I knew exactly where he meant. The rooftop garden of the old apartment building in Ikeja, where we'd had our first kiss 12 years ago. If Chike was really alive, if this wasn't some cruel joke, he would be there tonight. But why fake his death? And why warn me about Emeka? As the evening wound down, Emeka approached me again. Adana, I know this is difficult, but we need to discuss Chike's business affairs. There are some papers that need signing, some accounts that need transferring. For Kemi's future, you understand. Something cold settled in my stomach. What kind of accounts? Nothing for you to worry about, he said smoothly. Just some business investments. I'll handle everything. Make sure you and Kemi are taken care of. The way he said, I'll handle everything sent chills down my spine. I nodded, pretending to be the grieving widow who trusted her brother-in-law completely. But inside, doubt was growing like a tumor. After putting Kemi to bed in our Lekki home, I told our house help, Grace, that I needed some air. At 9 p.m., I drove through the chaotic Lagos traffic toward Ikeja, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The city's neon lights blurred through my tears as questions raced through my mind. If Chike was alive, where had he been for 3 days while I planned his funeral? Why let me go through that agony? And what did he know about Emeka that made him so dangerous? I parked outside the old building and climbed the narrow stairs to the rooftop. The Lagos skyline stretched out before me, a maze of lights and shadows. For a moment, I stood alone in the darkness, wondering if I'd finally lost my mind. Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around, and my world shattered all over again. There, stepping out of the shadows like a ghost, was my husband. Alive. Real. But his face was bruised, his left arm in a makeshift sling, and his eyes held a fear I'd never seen before. "Chike," I whispered. "Hello, my love," he said softly. "I'm so sorry for what I had to put you through." I wanted to run to him, to hold him, to slap him for making me bury an empty coffin. But something in his expression stopped me cold. "There's something you need to know about my brother," Chike continued, his voice urgent. "And about our marriage. Everything you think you know, it's all been a lie. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below." Eli. I stepped backward, my legs nearly giving out. "What are you talking about, Chike?" "My husband. This man I thought I'd buried. Looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 days. His usually perfect appearance was disheveled, his expensive clothes replaced with a simple t-shirt and jeans that hung loosely on his frame. Sit down, Adana. Please." He gestured to an old bench someone had left on the rooftop. "What I'm about to tell you will change everything." I remained standing, wrapping my arms around myself against the cool Lagos night air. "You let me bury you. I watched them put dirt on your coffin. Kemi cried herself to sleep for 3 nights, thinking her father was dead. How could you do that to us?" Tears filled his eyes. "Because if I hadn't, we'd all be dead by now. Really dead." "Stop speaking in riddles," I shouted, then caught myself, lowering my voice. "If you're in some kind of trouble, we could have figured it out together. We're married, Chike. We have a child together." "That's just it," he said quietly. "We're not married. Not legally." The words hit me like a physical blow. I sank onto the bench, staring at him in disbelief. "What do you mean we're not married?" Chike sat beside me, careful to maintain distance. 8 years ago, when we had our ceremony at the church, when your family celebrated with mine, when we exchanged rings and vows, Emeka was supposed to file our marriage certificate with the registry. He never did. My mind reeled. That's impossible. I have a marriage certificate. It's in our safe at home. A forgery. A very good one, but still fake. Chike pulled out his phone and showed me a document. "I found this last week while going through some business papers." I confronted Emeka about it. I stared at the screen, seeing what appeared to be a marriage certificate between Chike Okafor and someone named Folake Adebayo, dated 2 weeks before our wedding ceremony. "Who is Folake Adebayo?" My voice came out as a whisper. "Emeka's business partner's daughter. The marriage was arranged to secure a major import contract. I never knew about it, Adana. I swear to you, I never knew." The betrayal cut deeper than any knife. For 8 years, I believed I was Mrs. Adana Okafor. I'd introduced myself that way, signed documents with that name, built my entire identity around being Chike's wife. But legally, I was nothing more than his girlfriend. A mistress in my own home. That means Kemi. I couldn't finish the sentence. "Is legally considered illegitimate," Chike said, his voice breaking. "And according to Nigerian law, if something happens to me, you have no claim to anything. The house, the business, my assets, it all goes to my legal next of kin." Emeka. Emeka. Everything started falling into place. The way Emeka had rushed to handle the funeral arrangements, his eagerness to help with business affairs, his insistence that I not worry about the details. He'd been positioning himself to take everything. But why fake your death? Why not just confront him legally? Chike's expression darkened. "Because he tried to kill me, Adana. The accident wasn't an accident." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "Last Tuesday, after I confronted him about the marriage certificate, he asked to meet me for drinks at the Lagos Country Club. Said he wanted to explain everything. Instead, he drugged my drink." Chike rolled up his shirt sleeve, showing me needle marks on his arm. "When I started feeling dizzy, I excused myself to use the bathroom. That's when I overheard him on the phone." "What did you hear?" "He was talking to someone about making it look like an accident. Said the problem would be solved by Wednesday night, and that you and Kemi would be taken care of after a reasonable mourning period. The implications hit me like a tsunami. Emeka hadn't just been stealing from us. He'd been planning to murder Chaik and then manipulate me into signing over everything before getting rid of us too. So, how did you escape? I pretended to be more drugged than I was. I let him help me to my car, but once he left, I drove myself to a private clinic in Ikeja that doesn't ask questions. A friend of mine from university works there, Dr. Adebayo. He helped me figure out what I'd been given and how to flush it from my system. But the crash? The body? Chaik looked ashamed. I asked Dr. Adebayo to help me stage my death. We used a cadaver from the medical school, someone who donated their body to science. We made it look like me, staged the accident, made sure the body was damaged enough that identification would be difficult. The cold calculation of it all made me feel sick. You let me grieve for you. You let your daughter think she'd lost her father. I know how horrible that sounds, but I needed time to gather evidence. And I needed Emeka to think his plan had worked so he'd get careless. Chaik pulled out a small recording device. I've been documenting everything, his meetings, his phone calls, his business dealings. Adana, my brother isn't just a murderer. He's been embezzling from the company for years, using it to fund some very dangerous people. What kind of people? The kind who make people disappear when debts aren't paid. The kind who don't care about collateral damage. His eyes met mine. He owes them 30 million naira, and he's been planning to use my life insurance and business assets to pay them off. The weight of everything crashed down on me. Not only was I not legally married to the father of my child, but the man I'd trusted as a brother-in-law had been systematically destroying our lives from the inside. What do we do now? I asked. We make him pay. But first, we need to get you and Kemi somewhere safe. Tonight. Safe from what? Chaik's phone buzzed. He looked at it and went pale. Safe from this. He showed me the text message. I know you're alive. You have 24 hours to surface, or your girlfriend and daughter join the real you in the ground. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might explode. He knows. Which means he's been watching you. Watching the house. Maybe he's there right now. I jumped to my feet, grabbing my car keys. I have to get to Kemi. But Chaik caught my arm. Wait. We can't just rush in blindly. If Emeka's desperate enough to threaten you directly, he's already made his move. As if on cue, my phone rang. Grace's name appeared on the screen. I answered with shaking hands. Madam. Grace's voice was panicked. Some men came to the house. They took Kemi. Hit like if this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat. What do you think Emeka's next move will be? Comment below. What men? What did they look like? I screamed into the phone, my voice echoing across the empty rooftop. 3 men in black suits, Grace sobbed. They said they were from your brother-in-law's office, that there was an emergency, and they needed to take Kemi to you. She went with them willingly, because she knows Uncle Emeka. My legs gave out. Chaik caught me before I hit the ground, taking the phone from my shaking hands. Grace, this is very important, he said, his voice steady despite the panic in his eyes. Did they say anything else? Anything about where they were going? One of them was on the phone when they left. I heard him say something about the warehouse in Apapa, and that they would wait for instructions. Chaik's face went ashen. Grace, listen carefully. Pack a bag and leave the house immediately. Go to your sister's place in Surulere and don't tell anyone where you are. Don't answer calls from numbers you don't recognize. Do you understand? But sir, everyone thinks you're dead. I know. Just do as I say. Your life might depend on it. He hung up and immediately started dialing another number. We need help. Professional help. Who are you calling? My friend Kola at the State Security Service. If we're going to get Kemi back and survive this, we need someone with real power on our side. While he talked in rapid Yoruba to his contact, I tried to think clearly through my panic. Emeka had my daughter. My 6-year-old baby was with a man who'd tried to murder her father and had been planning to kill us all along. The thought made me want to vomit. But underneath the terror, something else was building, a rage so pure and hot it could melt steel. This man had stolen 8 years of my legal identity, had made my daughter illegitimate, had tried to murder my husband, and now he had kidnapped my child. Emeka Okafor was about to learn what happened when you threatened the mother's cub. Kola's sending a team to the warehouse, Chike said after ending the call. But he warned me that Emeka has connections everywhere, police, government officials, even some people in the SSS. We can't trust anyone completely. Then what do? We use the one advantage we have. He doesn't know that I know about his financial troubles, his debts to dangerous people. And he doesn't know about these recordings. Chike played back some of the audio he'd captured. Emeka's voice came through clearly, discussing payments to someone called the General and mentioning specific accounts where money had been hidden. Who is the General? From what I could gather, he's the head of a criminal organization that specializes in moving illegal goods through Lagos ports. Emeka's been using our legitimate import business to cover their operations, taking a cut for himself. But he's been skimming money from their profits too. So, he's stealing from criminals?
Exactly.
And now they want their money back, plus interest. That's why he needed me dead, to access the life insurance and liquidate the business assets. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize, but somehow I knew who it would be. Hello, sister-in-law. Emeka's voice was smooth as silk, but I could hear the menace underneath. Where's my daughter, you bastard? Such language, Adana. And here I thought grief had made you more respectful. He chuckled. Kemi is fine. She's having a lovely time playing with some new friends of mine. But her continued well-being depends entirely on your cooperation. What do you want? I want you to sign some documents. Transfer of business assets, liquidation authorizations, that sort of thing. Nothing you need to worry your pretty little head about. And if I refuse? Then Kemi takes a very long boat ride to nowhere. The casual way he said it made my blood freeze. But I don't think you'll refuse. Meet me at the Wharf Road warehouse in Apapa at midnight. Come alone, and bring any documents you have in Chike's safe. Business papers, insurance policies, everything. I want to talk to Kemi first. There was a pause. Then my daughter's scared voice came through the phone. Mama? I want to come home. Uncle Emeka said you needed me for something important, but I don't like it here. It smells bad, and the men are scary. Baby, listen to Mama. You're going to be okay. I'm coming to get you, alright? Just do what Uncle Emeka says for now and be very, very good. I will, Mama. I love you. I love you too, sweetheart. Emeka came back on the line. Touching.
Midnight, Adana.
Don't be late, and don't even think about bringing the police. I have people watching, and if I see anyone who doesn't belong, Kemi disappears forever. The line went dead. Chike was already planning. The warehouse is owned by one of the general shell companies. It's where they process contraband before moving it through the ports. If we're walking into that place, we're walking into a war zone. I don't care. I'm getting my daughter back. We're getting her back, he corrected. But not by walking into their trap. We're going to turn this around on them.
How?
By giving the general something he wants more than money. Evidence that Emeka has been stealing from him, along with records of where all the stolen money is hidden. Chike held up a flash drive. Everything is on here. Bank account numbers, transaction records, even photos of Emeka meeting with competitors to sell information. You think the general will turn on Emeka? I think the general will do whatever benefits him most. And a thief who endangers his operation is a liability that needs to be eliminated. My mind was racing. But how do we get this information to him without walking into that warehouse? We don't. We send someone else. Someone expendable. He was dialing another number. Folklore? Yes, it's Chike. I know this is strange, but I need you to listen very carefully. Your life and the lives of people I care about depend on what you do in the next 2 hours. I stared at him in shock. You're calling your legal wife? She's not my wife by choice, and she's been as much a victim of Emeka's schemes as we have. But right now, she might be our only way to save Kemi. What's your take on Chike's plan? Do you think using Folklore is smart or dangerous? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more intense African tales. Folklore Adebayo arrived at our meeting spot. a 24-hour Domino's pizza in Victoria Island, within an hour. I'd expected some glamorous Lagos socialite, but the woman who walked through the door looked as tired and worn down as I felt. She was beautiful, yes, but there was a sadness in her eyes that spoke of years of unwilling participation in someone else's game. "You look just like your pictures," she said to me softly. Chaik showed me photos of his real family all the time. His real family? She sat down across from us, declining Chaik's offer to buy her food. I've known from the beginning that what we had wasn't real. The marriage ceremony, the papers, all of it was arranged by my father and Emeka. I never even got a wedding night. Chaik disappeared immediately after the registry office, and I didn't see him again for months. Chaik looked ashamed. I thought it was just some business formality that would be dissolved later. Emeka told me it was temporary, just to secure the import licenses. I had no idea it would become permanent, or that he'd use it to invalidate my real relationship. I've been living in a flat in Abuja for 8 years, pretending to be married to a man who visits maybe 4 times a year for business meetings, Folklore continued. Do you know what that does to a woman? My father gets his business contracts, Emeka gets his leverage over Chaik, and I get to be a legal wife to a man who loves someone else. Looking at her, I felt an unexpected surge of sympathy. We were both victims of the same elaborate deception, both women whose lives had been shaped by men who saw us as chess pieces rather than human beings. But you could have divorced him, I said. You could have walked away. Folklore laughed bitterly. And lose my father's support? Bring shame on my family? In case you've forgotten, this is still Nigeria. Women like us don't just walk away from marriages, even fake ones. Besides, Emeka made it clear what would happen if I caused problems. He threatened you too? He threatened everyone. My younger sister, my mother, even my father's business. Emeka Okafor doesn't just manipulate, he owns people completely. Chaik leaned forward. But now we have a chance to end this. All of it. The fake marriage, the business fraud, the threats. But I need you to be very brave, Folklore. She looked between us. What do you need me to do? Chaik explained the plan. Folklore would go to the general, claiming that Emeka had sent her with important information about a security problem. She'd give him the flash drive with all of Emeka's financial crimes documented, along with evidence that he'd been planning to disappear with their money. The general would be so focused on dealing with Emeka that we'd have a chance to rescue Kemi during the chaos. That's assuming the general doesn't just kill me for knowing too much, Folklore pointed out. You'll tell him that Emeka forced you to deliver the message, that you don't know what's on the drive. Act scared, which shouldn't be hard, and convince him that you're just another victim. And what happens to me after? If Emeka survives this, he'll know I betrayed him. He won't survive it, Chaik said quietly. Men like the general don't forgive theft, especially not when it costs them millions. Emeka's been signing his own death warrant for years. Folklore was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the late-night Lagos traffic. Finally, she turned back to us. I'll do it. Not for you, Chaik. You may not have chosen this marriage, but you still let it happen while building a life with someone else. I'll do it for her, she nodded toward me, and for your daughter. No child should suffer because of adult games. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me yet. There's something else you both need to know. Folklare's expression grew grave. Emeka didn't just steal money from the general. He's been selling information about police raids to other criminal organizations. 3 operations were compromised last month, and 2 undercover officers were killed. The implications hit me like a physical blow. He's not just a thief. He's responsible for people's deaths. Which means the police want him as badly as the general does, Chaik realized. Kola wasn't just helping us as a friend. This has become a national security issue. Folklore nodded. The SSS has been investigating the leaks for months. If they can connect Emeka to those deaths, he'll face charges that carry the death penalty. But first, we have to survive tonight, I said. And get Kemi back safely. We synchronized our watches. 11:15 p.m. In 45 minutes, I was supposed to walk into that warehouse in Apapa. Instead, Folake would be approaching the general with evidence of Emika's betrayal, Chaik would be coordinating with the SSS team from a safe distance, and I would be waiting for the chaos that would hopefully give us an opening to save my daughter. As we prepared to leave the restaurant, Folake grabbed my arm. Adana, there's one more thing. About the marriage certificate, there might be a way to fix it. What do you mean? If Emika coerced my father into arranging the marriage, if we can prove it was done under duress or through fraud, a court could invalidate it. You and Chaik could be legally married retroactively. Hope flickered in my chest for the first time in hours. Is that really possible? My father kept recordings of all his business meetings. If Emika threatened him, it would be on tape.
She looked at Chaik.
Your real wife deserves to have her name back, and your daughter deserves to be legitimate. The words hit me harder than I expected. For 8 years, I'd carried the invisible shame of being unmarried in a society that judged women harshly for it. Even though I'd believed I was married, somewhere deep down, I'd always felt like I was living a lie. Now I understood why I literally was. But as we headed out into the humid Lagos night, my legal status was the least of my concerns. My daughter was in the hands of a man who'd proven he could kill without hesitation. The next few hours would determine whether I'd get the chance to be anybody's mother again, legal or not. Chaik squeezed my hand as we reached our cars. We're going to get her back, Adana. I promise you. And if something goes wrong, if this plan fails, his eyes were hard as steel. Then Emika Okafor will learn that there are some things more dangerous than criminal organizations and corrupt officials. What's that? A father protecting his child. As I drove through the Lagos night toward what could be the most dangerous hours of my life, I realized that Chaik was wrong about one thing. There was something even more dangerous than a father protecting his child. A mother who had nothing left to lose. My phone rang at 11:45 p.m. Unknown number. Change of plans. Emika's voice was tight with anger. The general wants to meet with you personally. Seems someone's been telling tales about me. The plan was working. But now, instead of staying safely away from the warehouse, I was being drawn directly into the heart of danger. Where? I asked. Same place.
But Adana?
When you get here, you might want to say goodbye to Kemi properly. Things have become complicated. Keep reading to see how this dangerous game plays out. What do you think the general will do when he learns the truth? Share your thoughts below. The Apapa warehouse district at midnight looked like something from a nightmare. Massive shipping containers stacked like steel mountains cast long shadows under the sparse streetlights. The air reeked of diesel fuel and rotting fish from the nearby ports. As I drove deeper into the industrial maze, every instinct screamed at me to turn around and run. But Kemi was somewhere in this concrete hell, and I would walk through fire to get her back. I parked outside the address Emika had given me, a sprawling warehouse with Lagos Import Solutions painted in fading letters on its side. 3 black SUVs sat in the lot, their engines still ticking from recent use. Through the partially open loading dock, I could see figures moving in the dim interior light. My phone buzzed with a text from Chaik. SSS team in position. Folake delivered the drive 20 minutes ago. Whatever happens, don't sign anything until you know Kemi is safe. I took a deep breath and walked toward the warehouse entrance. Every step felt like it might be my last. Mrs. Okafor, welcome. A voice boomed from the shadows. A massive man emerged, easily 6.5 feet tall, with tribal scarification on his cheeks and arms like tree trunks. This had to be the general. Where is my daughter? Straight to business. I like that in a woman. He gestured for me to follow him inside. Your daughter is safe.
For now.
But we have some urgent matters to discuss first. The warehouse interior was a maze of shipping containers and industrial equipment. Armed men stood at regular intervals, their faces impassive but alert. At the center of the space, under harsh fluorescent lights, a makeshift office had been set up with desks, computers, and what looked like sophisticated surveillance equipment. And there, sitting in a chair with his hands zip-tied behind his back, was Emika. His expensive funeral suit was torn and stained. His face was bruised, and there was dried blood on his shirt. When he saw me, his eyes widened with what looked like genuine relief. Adana, thank God. Tell him this is all a misunderstanding. Tell him I never stole anything. The general laughed, a sound like grinding gravel. Your sister-in-law seems to have a different opinion about that. He pulled out a tablet and showed me financial records. According to these documents, Mr. Emeka has been very creative with our business arrangements. I stared at the numbers on the screen. Millions of naira diverted from accounts, false invoices, payments to companies that didn't exist. The scope of the theft was staggering. But more interesting, the general continued, is this evidence that he's been selling information about our operations to competitors and to the police. Emeka went pale. That's not true. Someone is setting me up. Yes, someone is setting you up, the general agreed.
You.
Every transaction is authenticated, every conversation recorded. Did you really think we survived this long in business without knowing how to protect ourselves? I realized that Folklore had done more than just deliver Chike's flash drive. The general had his own evidence of Emeka's betrayals, and our information had simply confirmed what he already suspected. Now, Mrs. Okafor, the general turned to me, I understand that this family drama has put you in an unfortunate position. Your husband's death, the business complications, and now this unpleasant discovery about his brother's activities. My husband isn't dead, I said quietly. The general's eyebrows rose. Excuse me? Chike isn't dead. Emeka tried to have him killed, so he faked his death to gather evidence. He's alive. For the first time since I'd arrived, the general looked genuinely surprised. Emeka's face went from pale to white. That's impossible, Emeka stammered. I saw the body. I identified it at the morgue. You saw what we wanted you to see? I replied. A body that wasn't your brother, in a staged accident that fooled everyone except the people who needed to know the truth. The general was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Then he started laughing again. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Mr. Chike fakes his death to expose his brother's crimes, and in doing so, hands me the perfect solution to my problem. He looked at Emeka with something approaching admiration. You have been played, my friend. Completely and thoroughly played. But the insurance money, Emeka protested weakly. The business assets. I was going to pay you back everything with interest. With money that was never yours to steal in the first place. The general shook his head. Mr. Emeka, you have created what we call in business a trust deficit. Even if you could pay back every naira, how could I ever believe that you wouldn't steal from me again? The implications of his words hung heavy in the air. I'd seen enough Nollywood movies to know how men like the general dealt with trust deficits. However, he continued, your sister-in-law's honesty in this matter has earned my respect. Mrs. Okafor, where is your daughter? You tell me. Your men took her. My men? The general looked confused, then angry. He turned to one of his subordinates. Taiwo, what is this about a child? The man named Taiwo looked uncomfortable. Sir, we didn't take any child. Our only instruction was to secure Mr. Emeka and wait for the woman to arrive. My blood turned to ice. If you don't have Kemi, then where is she? Emeka's expression had shifted from fear to something approaching desperation. I had to ensure your cooperation. She's safe, but she's not here. Where is my daughter? I screamed, launching myself at him before anyone could stop me. My nails raked across his already bruised face as I grabbed his shirt. Where is she? Two of the general's men pulled me back, but not before I'd left fresh scratches on Emeka's cheeks. She's with Folklore, he gasped. At her apartment in Abuja. I sent her there this afternoon. You're lying. I'm not. Check her phone records, her flight information. I needed you to think she was in immediate danger, but I'm not a monster. She's safe with Folklore. The general was already making phone calls, barking orders in rapid Yoruba. Within minutes, one of his men approached with a tablet showing flight records. Sir, there's a record of a child flying Lagos to Abuja this afternoon. First-class passenger, age 6, traveling with adult female companion. My phone was already ringing. I answered it with shaking hands, praying to hear the voice I needed most in the world. Mama? Kemi's sleepy voice came through clearly. I'm at Auntie Folklare's house. She said you sent her to pick me up because of an emergency with Daddy's funeral arrangements. But Mama, I don't understand why I had to fly on an airplane when you didn't come with me. Relief flooded through me so powerfully that I nearly collapsed. Baby, are you okay? Are you hurt? I'm fine, Mama. Auntie Folklore is very nice. She let me order pizza, and we watched princess movies. But when are you coming to get me? Very soon, sweetheart. I'm going to come get you tonight, okay? Just stay with Auntie Folklore and be good. Okay, Mama. I love you. I love you too, baby. More than you'll ever know. I hung up and turned to face Emeka with pure fury. You used my daughter as a pawn in your games. You made her think her father was dead, then shipped her off to a stranger to manipulate me. Folklore isn't a stranger, he said weakly. She's family. Legally. She's a victim, just like the rest of us. I looked at the general. What happens now? Now, we resolve our business matters, he said calmly. Mr. Emeka has stolen approximately 30 million naira from our organization, plus caused significant operational disruptions. In the business world, such behavior has consequences. Please, Emeka begged. I can pay it back. Give me time. I can liquidate assets, sell properties. With what assets? The general asked. Everything you claimed to own was actually your brother's. And your brother, being alive, has already moved to protect his legitimate business interests. As if summoned by the conversation, my phone rang. Chaik's name appeared on the screen. The SSS is moving in. His voice was urgent. They have warrants for Emeka's arrest on murder conspiracy, financial fraud, and treason. But Adana, you need to get out of there now. The general's organization is about to be raided too. I looked around the warehouse. The general's men were already moving with practiced efficiency, shutting down computers and loading equipment into trucks. This wasn't their first time evacuating quickly. Mrs. Okafor, the general approached me. It has been a pleasure doing business with you. Your honesty tonight has earned you safe passage. But I suggest you leave immediately. What about him? I pointed to Emeka. Mr. Emeka will be staying with us for a while longer. We have some final accounting matters to resolve. The cold finality in his voice made it clear what kind of resolution Emeka could expect. Part of me felt I should be horrified, but after everything he'd done, the attempted murder, the kidnapping, the years of manipulation, I found I couldn't summon any sympathy. Wait, Emeka called out desperately as I turned to leave. Adana, please. I'm still Kemi's uncle. I'm still family. I stopped and looked back at him. Family doesn't try to murder each other. Family doesn't steal children. Family doesn't spend years building elaborate lies to destroy the people they're supposed to love. But you made your choice when you chose money over blood. Now live with the consequences. As I walked toward the exit, the general called out one last time. Mrs. Okafor, a word of advice. Your husband is a smart man, but he trusted the wrong person for too long. In the future, remember that sometimes the people closest to us are the most dangerous. I'll remember. Outside, the Lagos night felt different, cleaner somehow, despite the industrial smells. As I drove away from the warehouse, I could see flashing blue and red lights approaching from multiple directions. The SSS raid was beginning. My phone rang again.
Chaik.
Are you safe? I'm safe. And Kemi is safe. She's in Abuja with Folklore. I know. Kola's people confirmed it. A team is already on the way to pick her up and bring her home. And Emeka? There was a pause. Emeka made his choice. The SSS will try to arrest him, but given the general's reputation for solving problems permanently, well, justice comes in many forms. I thought about this as I drove through the empty Lagos streets toward home. For 8 years, I'd lived a lie orchestrated by a man who saw me as nothing more than an obstacle to his greed. He'd stolen my legal identity, endangered my child, and tried to murder the man I loved. But in trying to destroy us, he'd ultimately destroyed himself. The web of lies and betrayals he'd woven had collapsed, trapping him at the center, while the rest of us found our way to freedom. The story isn't over yet. Will Emeka escape justice? Can Adana and Chaik rebuild their lives? Hit that subscribe button to find out what happens next. The Apapa warehouse district at midnight looked like something from a nightmare. Massive shipping containers stacked like steel mountains cast long shadows under the sparse streetlights. The air reeked of diesel fuel and rotting fish from the nearby ports. As I drove deeper into the industrial maze, every instinct screamed at me to turn around and run. But Kemi was somewhere in this concrete hell, and I would walk through fire to get her back. I parked outside the address Emeka had given me, a sprawling warehouse with Lagos Import Solutions painted in fading letters on its side. 3 black SUVs sat in the lot, their engines still ticking from recent use. Through the partially open loading dock, I could see figures moving in the dim interior light. My phone buzzed with a text from Chaik. SSS team in position. Folklore delivered the drive 20 minutes ago. Whatever happens, don't sign anything until you know Kemi is safe. I took a deep breath and walked toward the warehouse entrance. Every step felt like it might be my last. Mrs. Okafor, welcome. A voice boomed from the shadows. A massive man emerged, easily 6.5 feet tall, with tribal scarification on his cheeks and arms like tree trunks. This had to be the general. Where is my daughter? Straight to business. I like that in a woman. He gestured for me to follow him inside. Your daughter is safe.
For now.
But we have some urgent matters to discuss first. The warehouse interior was a maze of shipping containers and industrial equipment. Armed men stood at regular intervals, their faces impassive but alert. At the center of the space, under harsh fluorescent lights, a makeshift office had been set up with desks, computers, and what looked like sophisticated surveillance equipment. And there, sitting in a chair with his hands zip-tied behind his back, was Emeka. His expensive funeral suit was torn and stained. His face was bruised, and there was dried blood on his shirt. When he saw me, his eyes widened with what looked like genuine relief. Adana, thank God. Tell him this is all a misunderstanding. Tell him I never stole anything. The general laughed, a sound like grinding gravel. Your sister-in-law seems to have a different opinion about that. He pulled out a tablet and showed me financial records. According to these documents, Mr. Emeka has been very creative with our business arrangements. I stared at the numbers on the screen. Millions of naira diverted from accounts, false invoices, payments to companies that didn't exist. The scope of the theft was staggering. But more interesting, the general continued, is this evidence that he's been selling information about our operations to competitors and to the police. Emeka went pale. That's not true. Someone is setting me up. Yes, someone is setting you up, the general agreed.
You.
Every transaction is authenticated, every conversation recorded. Did you really think we survived this long in business without knowing how to protect ourselves? I realized that Folklore had done more than just deliver Chaik's flash drive. The general had his own evidence of Emeka's betrayals, and our information had simply confirmed what he already suspected. Now, Mrs. Okafor, the general turned to me, I understand that this family drama has put you in an unfortunate position. Your husband's death, the business complications, and now this unpleasant discovery about his brother's activities. My husband isn't dead, I said quietly. The general's eyebrows rose. Excuse me? Chaik isn't dead. Emeka tried to have him killed, so he faked his death to gather evidence. He's alive. For the first time since I'd arrived, the general looked genuinely surprised. Emeka's face went from pale to white. That's impossible, Emeka stammered. I saw the body. I identified it at the morgue. You saw what we wanted you to see? I replied. A body that wasn't your brother, in a staged accident that fooled everyone except the people who needed to know the truth. The general was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Then he started laughing again. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Mr. Chaik fakes his death to expose his brother's crimes, and in doing so, hands me the perfect solution to my problem. He looked at Emeka with something approaching admiration. You have been played, my friend. Completely and thoroughly played. But the insurance money, Emeka protested weakly. The business assets. I was going to pay you back everything with interest. With money that was never yours to steal in the first place. The general shook his head. Mr. Emeka, you have created what we call in business a trust deficit. Even if you could pay back every naira, how could I ever believe that you wouldn't steal from me again? The implications of his words hung heavy in the air. I'd seen enough Nollywood movies to know how men like the general dealt with trust deficits. However, he continued, your sister-in-law's honesty in this matter has earned my respect. Mrs. Okafor, where is your daughter? You tell me. Your men took her. My men? The general looked confused, then angry. He turned to one of his subordinates. Taiwo, what is this about a child? The man named Taiwo looked uncomfortable. Sir, we didn't take any child. Our only instruction was to secure Mr. Emeka and wait for the woman to arrive. My blood turned to ice. If you don't have Kemi, then where is she? Emeka's expression had shifted from fear to something approaching desperation. I had to ensure your cooperation. She's safe, but she's not here. Where is my daughter? I screamed, launching myself at him before anyone could stop me. My nails raked across his already bruised face as I grabbed his shirt. Where is she? Two of the general's men pulled me back, but not before I'd left fresh scratches on Emeka's cheeks. She's with Folklore, he gasped. At her apartment in Abuja. I sent her there this afternoon. You're lying. I'm not. Check her phone records, her flight information. I needed you to think she was in immediate danger, but I'm not a monster. She's safe with Folklore. The general was already making phone calls, barking orders in rapid Yoruba. Within minutes, one of his men approached with a tablet showing flight records. Sir, there's a record of a child flying Lagos to Abuja this afternoon. First-class passenger, age 6, traveling with adult female companion. My phone was already ringing. I answered it with shaking hands, praying to hear the voice I needed most in the world. Mama? Kemi's sleepy voice came through clearly. I'm at Auntie Folek's house. She said you sent her to pick me up because of an emergency with Daddy's funeral arrangements. But Mama, I don't understand why I had to fly on an airplane when you didn't come with me. 3 days after the warehouse confrontation, I sat in a lawyer's office in Victoria Island, holding Kemi on my lap while Chike squeezed my free hand. My daughter had returned from Abuja that morning, confused but unharmed, full of stories about Auntie Folek's pretty house and completely unaware of how close she'd come to becoming an orphan. The marriage situation is actually quite straightforward to resolve, Barrister Adebola explained, shuffling through papers on his mahogany desk. Given that the original marriage certificate was obtained through fraud and coercion, we can have it nullified. Then you can remarry properly. How long will that take? I asked. With the evidence Mrs. Folek has provided, including her father's recorded conversations with Mr. Emeka, probably 6 to 8 weeks. The court will expedite it given the criminal nature of the original deception. Folek had been a godsend. After bringing Kemi safely home, she'd thrown herself into helping us untangle the legal mess her forced marriage had created. She'd even offered to testify against her own father if necessary, though she hoped it wouldn't come to that. What about the business?
Chike asked.
That's more complicated, the lawyer admitted. Mr. Emeka had been using the company for money laundering, which means some assets may be frozen during the investigation. But the legitimate parts of the business should be returned to you within a few months. Speaking of Emeka, I said carefully, has there been any word? Barrister Adebola's expression grew grave. Mr. Emeka Okafor was found dead in Lagos Lagoon yesterday morning. The police are calling it a drowning, but... He shrugged meaningfully. I felt a complex mix of emotions. Relief that he could never threaten us again, but also a strange sadness. For years, I'd considered Emeka family. Learning that he'd been manipulating us all along was like discovering that someone you loved had never really existed. Mama, why does everyone keep talking about Uncle Emeka being gone? Kemi asked, looking up at me with innocent eyes. First Daddy was gone, now Uncle Emeka is gone. Are you going to go away too? My heart broke a little.
No, sweetheart.
Mama is never going away. And Daddy isn't going anywhere either. But I thought Daddy was in heaven? Chaik leaned forward, speaking gently. Kemi, sometimes adults have to pretend things to keep people safe. I had to pretend to be gone so that some bad people wouldn't hurt you and Mama. But I'm back now, and I'm never leaving you again. Like playing hide and seek? Exactly like hide and seek. But the game is over now. Kemi seemed satisfied with this explanation, turning her attention to the toy plane Folklore had bought her in Abuja. Children were remarkably resilient, I reflected. It would probably take her therapist years to fully understand what she'd been through, but for now, she was just happy to have both her parents back. There is one more matter, Barrister Adebola said. The life insurance policy that Mr. Emeka was hoping to claim. Since Mr. Chaik isn't actually deceased, there's no payout. But the insurance company is very interested in prosecuting fraud charges against anyone who helped stage the death. Will that be a problem for us? I asked nervously. Not if you cooperate fully with their investigation. They understand that you were protecting yourselves from a genuine threat. The doctor who helped stage the death might face some consequences, but given the circumstances, I doubt it will be severe. As we left the lawyer's office, Lagos looked different to me. The chaotic traffic, the street vendors calling out their wares, the mix of modern skyscrapers and traditional markets, it all felt more vibrant somehow. For the first time in years, I felt like I was truly seeing my city instead of just surviving in it. Where to now? Chaik asked as we buckled Kemi into her car seat.
Home, I said.
Our real home. Not the one Emeka was planning to steal, not the one built on lies. Just home. But as we drove through Lekki, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but something made me answer. Mrs. Okafor? The voice was unfamiliar, female, nervous. Yes. My name is Detective Inspector Amaka Okonkwo, with the Lagos State Police. I'm investigating Mr. Emeka Okafor's death, and I need to ask you some questions. My stomach clenched. What kind of questions? She began. The preliminary autopsy shows he died from drowning, but there were also signs of physical trauma, bruising consistent with restraints, and what appears to be evidence that he was beaten before entering the water. I stared at the photos, trying to feel something other than numbness. The man in those pictures had tried to destroy my family, but he'd also been Kemi's uncle, Chaik's brother. His death, however it happened, represented the final collapse of relationships I'd once treasured. We have witnesses who place you at a warehouse in Apapa on the night of his death, Detective Okonkwo continued. They say you had a confrontation with Mr. Emeka before leaving him with several unidentified men. That's correct. Can you tell me about that confrontation? With my lawyer's guidance, I explained the events of that night. The kidnapping threat, the meeting with the general, the discovery that Kemi was safe in Abuja. I was careful not to implicate myself in any planning of violence, but I also didn't lie about what I'd witnessed. So you left Mr. Emeka in the custody of this man called the General, knowing that he was angry about stolen money? I left my brother-in-law with the people he'd chosen to do business with. What happened after that was between them. Detective Okonkwo leaned back in her chair. Mrs. Okafor, I'm going to be direct with you. We know that your husband faked his death. We know that Mr. Emeka was involved in serious criminal activities. And we know that the General and his organization don't usually let theft go unpunished. What's your point, Detective? My point is that everyone involved in this situation had reasons to want Emeka Okafor dead. The question is whether any of you actively participated in making that happen. My lawyer started to speak, but I held up my hand. Detective, I won't pretend to mourn a man who tried to murder my husband and kidnapped my daughter. But I didn't kill him. I didn't ask anyone to kill him, and I didn't plan his death. If he's dead, it's because he made enemies of people more dangerous than my family. And if we can't find evidence linking the General to the murder, then you'll have to keep looking, because the only thing I'm guilty of is trying to protect my child. Detective Okonkwo studied me for a long moment, then gathered up her photos. That's all for now, Mrs. Okafor. But don't leave Lagos without informing us. This investigation is far from over. As we left the police station, I realized that Emeka's death had created a new problem. Someone had to be held accountable for his murder, and if the police couldn't find the general, they might decide that the grieving sister-in-law with a clear motive was a suitable substitute. The game wasn't over. It had just entered a new, more dangerous phase. What do you think will happen next? Will the police find evidence against Adana? Share your theories in the comments and hit that like button if you're loving this story. 2 weeks later, I was folding Kemi's school uniforms when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see Detective Inspector Okonkwo standing on my porch with 2 uniformed officers behind her. My heart sank. Mama, who's at the door? Kemi looked up from her coloring book. Just some people Mama needs to talk to, sweetheart. Why don't you go play in your room for a few minutes? I waited until she was upstairs before opening the door. Mrs. Okafor, Detective Okonkwo's expression was unreadable. We need you to come with us for further questioning. Am I under arrest? Not at this time. But new evidence has come to light regarding your brother-in-law's death. My hands shook as I grabbed my purse and phone. I need to call my lawyer. You can call him from the station. The ride to the police station felt like a funeral procession. I kept thinking about Kemi upstairs, coloring pictures of our family. What would happen to her if they arrested me? What would happen to all of us? At the station, Detective Okonkwo led me to the same interrogation room as before. But this time, there was another man waiting, a tall, thin officer with the bearing of someone very senior. Mrs. Okafor, this is Commissioner Adeyemi, Detective Okonkwo said. He's heading up a joint task force investigating organized crime in Lagos. Commissioner Adeyemi studied me with sharp eyes. Mrs. Okafor, we've been tracking the General's organization for 3 years. Your brother-in-law's murder was just the latest in a string of killings connected to their money laundering operations. I don't understand what this has to do with me. We have a proposal, he continued. Help us locate the General, and we can ensure that you won't face charges related to Mr. Emeka's death. I stared at him. You want me to be an informant? We want you to be a good citizen helping law enforcement stop a dangerous criminal organization. And if I refuse? Detective Okonkwo slid a folder across the table. Then we proceed with building a case that you conspired to murder your brother-in-law. I opened the folder and felt my blood turn cold. There were phone records showing calls between my number and numbers linked to the General's organization. Financial records suggesting money transfers. Even photos of me at locations where the organization was known to operate. This is all circumstantial, I protested, though my voice lacked conviction. Circumstantial evidence convicts people every day, Commissioner Adeyemi said calmly. Especially when the defendant had clear motive, opportunity, and demonstrable contact with known criminals. Those phone records are from when I was trying to find my kidnapped daughter. That's your story. But a prosecutor might argue that you were coordinating a murder plot. The trap was elegant in its simplicity. They couldn't find the General, so they were going to pressure me into finding him for them. And if I refused, they'd railroad me for a murder I didn't commit. What exactly are you asking me to do? The General's organization has been damaged by Mr. Emeka's betrayal and the subsequent law enforcement attention, Commissioner Adeyemi explained. They'll be looking to rebuild, to find new business partners. Your husband's legitimate import company could be very attractive to them. You want Chike to go undercover? We want both of you to make yourselves available. Let them approach you. When they do, you help us document their operations and identify their key members. And if they realize what we're doing, these aren't people who give second chances. That's why we'll provide protection. Full surveillance, backup teams, the works. Detective Okonkwo leaned forward. Mrs. Okafor, these people killed your brother-in-law. They've killed dozens of others. Don't you want to see them face justice? I thought about Emeka, despite everything he'd done to us. He'd been greedy, manipulative, even murderous in his desperation. But did that mean he deserved to drown in Lagos Lagoon while criminals calculated the value of his life in Naira? I need to discuss this with my husband. Of course. But Mrs. Okafor? Commissioner Adeyemi's voice was gentle but firm. Don't take too long to decide. Justice delayed is justice denied, and we have families of victims waiting for closure. about walking away and letting the general handle him. Does that make me complicit? Emeka made his choices. You made yours to protect our daughter. There's a difference. Is there? I knew what was going to happen to him. I could have tried to stop it, could have insisted he be turned over to the police instead. But as I pulled into our driveway, I wondered if that was really true. In trying to save my family from one kind of moral compromise, had I stumbled into another? That evening, as Kemi and I made dinner together, she asked the question that broke my heart. Mama, are you going to go away like Uncle Emeka did? What makes you ask that, sweetheart? You've been sad ever since the police came. And you keep looking at me like you're trying to remember something important. I knelt down to her level, taking her small hands in mine. Mama might have to go away for a little while to help some people with important work. But no matter what happens, I will always come back to you. Always. Promise. Promise. But even as I said the words, I wasn't sure if I could keep them. The police wanted me to infiltrate a criminal organization that killed people for sport. If I agreed, I might not survive long enough to keep any promises. If I refused, I might spend the rest of my life in prison for a crime I didn't commit. Later that night, after Kemi was asleep, Chaik and I sat on our balcony looking out over the Lagos Lagoon. Somewhere out there, Emeka's body had been found floating among the water hyacinths and industrial waste. Somewhere out there, the general was rebuilding his empire and planning his next moves. What do you think we should do? I asked. Chaik was quiet for a long moment. I think we should run. Leave Nigeria entirely. Start over somewhere else. With what money? And what about Kemi's school, her friends, our entire life here? What life? Our business is destroyed, you're facing murder charges, and we're legally not even married. What exactly are we staying to protect? He had a point, but the thought of running felt like admitting defeat, like letting Emeka's legacy of destruction win after all. My phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. Mrs. Okafor, I believe we have unfinished business to discuss. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Tarkwa Bay Beach. Come alone and bring your husband's business records. It's time to complete our transaction. A friend. I showed the message to Chaik. His face went pale. The general? Has to be. But how did he get my number? And what transaction is he talking about? Maybe he's planning to offer us partnership in his operations. To clean money through our import business in exchange for protection. Or maybe he's planning to finish what he started with Emeka. We stared at each other, both understanding that the choice had been made for us. Tomorrow, I would meet with the general. The only question was whether I'd be wearing a wire for the police or walking into that meeting with no backup except my own wits. Either way, the game was about to get much more dangerous. Which choice would you make? Help the police or face the general alone? Let us know what you think Adana should do. Don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter. I stood on Tarkwa Bay Beach at exactly 2 p.m., salt spray stinging my face as waves crashed against the rocky shoreline. The tiny recording device the police had given me felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, taped to my ribs beneath my flowing Ankara top. Commissioner Adeyemi's backup team was supposedly watching from multiple vantage points, but I felt utterly alone. The beach was nearly deserted except for a few fishermen mending nets in the distance. I'd taken the ferry from Tarzan Jetty like a tourist, but my hands had shaken the entire 15-minute journey. If this went wrong, if the general suspected I was working with the police, Kemi would grow up without either parent. Mrs. Okafor. The voice came from behind me. I turned to see the general approaching, flanked by two men in casual clothes that couldn't quite hide the bulges of concealed weapons. He looked different in the afternoon sunlight, older, more weathered, but no less dangerous. You came alone as requested. Good. What do you want? I try to keep my voice steady. Straight to business. I appreciate that. He gestured for me to walk with him along the shoreline. Your brother-in-law's unfortunate death has created some complications for my organization. I'm sorry for your loss, I said, the words tasting like ash. He laughed. Loss? Mrs. Okafor, Emeka Okafor's death solved several problems. He was a liability who had outlived his usefulness. But his absence has also created an opportunity. What kind of opportunity? Your husband's import business has excellent connections throughout West Africa. Clean documentation, established relationships with customs officials, a reputation for legitimate trade. These are valuable assets. I felt the recording device pressing against my ribs and tried to keep him talking. What are you proposing? A partnership. We provide capital and protection. You provide infrastructure and legitimate business cover. Everyone profits. And if we refuse? The general stopped walking and turned to face me. His expression was pleasant, almost grandfatherly, but his eyes were cold as January rain. Mrs. Okafor, I think you misunderstand our relationship. This is not a negotiation. Your brother-in-law owed us 30 million naira. That debt doesn't disappear simply because he's no longer able to pay it. My stomach dropped. Emeka's debts have nothing to do with us. In Nigeria, family debts are inherited. Your husband was Emeka's business partner and beneficiary. Legally and morally, the obligation transfers to him. That's not how the law works. Perhaps not in the courts. But we don't operate under the same legal framework as ordinary citizens. One of his men shifted slightly, his jacket falling open to reveal a gun. The question is whether you prefer to resolve this matter through cooperation or other means. I thought about Commissioner Adeyemi's promise of protection and wondered where his backup team was. The beach felt impossibly isolated, despite the Lagos skyline visible across the water. What would this partnership involve exactly?
Simple.
Your husband resumes his import operations. We provide certain goods that need discreet transportation. You ask no questions about the contents of specific shipments, and we ensure your family's safety and prosperity. Drug trafficking? Among other things. Firearms, currency, occasionally people who prefer to travel without documentation. He said it so casually he might have been discussing the weather. All very lucrative and completely invisible to law enforcement when properly managed. The recording device was getting everything, but I needed more details for the police to build their case. How would the logistics work? How much product are we talking about? What routes? The general studied me carefully, and for a moment I was terrified he could somehow sense the wire. You're asking very specific questions for someone who claims to be reluctant. I'm a businesswoman. If I'm going to risk my family's future, I need to understand exactly what I'm getting into. He nodded approvingly. Smart. Very smart. Your husband chose well when he married you.
He paused.
Even if that marriage wasn't quite legal at the time. The casual way he mentioned our marriage situation sent chills down my spine. How much did he know about our personal lives? We move approximately 50 million naira worth of product through Lagos ports each month, he continued. Cocaine from South America, heroin from Afghanistan, weapons from Eastern Europe. Your business would handle perhaps 20% of that volume. 10 million naira per month? Minimum. During busy seasons, much more. In exchange, you keep 5% of gross revenue plus protection for your family and business. 500,000 naira per month minimum. For a family facing financial ruin, it was almost impossible not to calculate how that money could solve our immediate problems. But I forced myself to remember the cost: people destroyed by drugs, weapons used to kill innocent victims, human trafficking operations that stole lives and dignity. There's one more thing, the general continued. A demonstration of good faith on your part. What kind of demonstration? Tomorrow night, there's a shipment arriving at Tin Can Island port. Small load, low risk, perfect for a test run. Your husband meets our contact, signs the customs documentation, oversees the transfer to our trucks.
Simple.
And if something goes wrong, if customs decides to inspect the shipment, then your husband takes responsibility as the importer of record. He goes to prison, and your daughter grows up visiting her father through bars. The general's smile never wavered, which is why it's very important that nothing goes wrong. I felt like I was drowning in the implications. The police wanted me to gather evidence, but they were asking me to put Chaik directly in the line of fire. If he got caught in their operation, he'd face decades in prison for drug trafficking. I need time to discuss this with my husband. Time is a luxury we don't have, Mrs. Okafor. My associates are growing impatient about the money they're owed.
Give me your answer now.
One of his men stepped closer, his hand resting casually on the bulge beneath his jacket. In the distance, I could see the fisherman had disappeared. We were completely alone with two armed criminals and whatever backup the police might have positioned nearby. Yes, I heard myself say. We'll do it. Excellent. The general pulled out his phone and made a brief call in Igbo. The arrangements are made. Tomorrow at 11 p.m., Tin Can Island Port, Warehouse 7. Your husband should come prepared to sign paperwork and ask no questions about cargo contents. As he turned to leave, I called out. What happens after the test run? If everything goes smoothly, then we discuss a more permanent arrangement. And Mrs. Okafor? Make sure your husband understands the importance of discretion. People who talk too much about our business arrangements tend to have very short lifespans. They walked away, leaving me alone on the beach with the weight of what I'd just agreed to. I'd committed my husband to participating in a major drug trafficking operation, all while wearing a wire that would likely be used to prosecute us both if things went wrong. The ferry ride back to Lagos felt like a journey to hell. I sat in the bow, clutching the railing, and trying not to throw up from a combination of seasickness and pure terror. Commissioner Adeyemi had promised protection, but how could he protect us from a criminal organization that seemed to know everything about our lives? When I got home, Chaik was waiting with barely controlled panic. How did it go? Did they threaten you? I told him everything, watching his face grow paler with each detail. Drug trafficking? Adana, if I get caught, I'll go to prison for the rest of my life. And if I don't get caught, I become a criminal. There's no good outcome here. Unless the police operation works. Unless we help them arrest the general and his organization. And if it doesn't work? If something goes wrong and we're exposed as informants. I thought about the general's casual mention of people who talk too much having short lifespans. I thought about Emeka's body floating in a lagoon. I thought about Kemi asking if I was going away like Uncle Emeka had. Then we run. Tonight. Take Kemi and disappear before tomorrow's meeting. With what money? And how far do you think we'll get before they find us? He was right. The general's organization had resources and connections that stretched far beyond Lagos. If we ran and they decided to chase us, there might not be anywhere in Nigeria, or even West Africa, where we'd be safe. My phone buzzed with a text from Commissioner Adeyemi. Excellent work today. We have everything we need to move forward with tomorrow's operation. Remember, trust the plan. But sitting in our living room, watching Kemi play with her dolls, I realized that trusting the plan might be the most dangerous thing we'd ever done. The trap was set for tomorrow night. The only question was who would be caught in it. This story is getting intense. What do you think will happen at the port tomorrow? Share your predictions, and don't forget to hit that like button. The next evening, I stood in our bedroom watching Chaik adjust his tie with shaking hands. In 30 minutes, he would drive to Tin Can Island Port to meet with international drug traffickers while wearing a wire and hoping that police backup would keep him alive. You don't have to do this, I said for the 10th time. We can still run. Where, Adana? They know our faces, our family, our friends. The general made it clear this isn't optional. He turned from the mirror, his expression grim but resolved. Besides, if we help the police shut them down, this nightmare ends. If we run, we'll be looking over our shoulders for the rest of our lives. Downstairs, Kemi was having dinner with Grace, completely unaware that her father might not come home tonight. We told her he had a business meeting, the same lie we'd been telling her about so many things lately. The police promised they'd have teams in position. Chaik continued, checking the small recording device taped to his chest. Snipers, surveillance, backup units. They said it would be completely safe. They said the same thing about my beach meeting yesterday, and I didn't see a single officer. You didn't need to see them. You got the information and came home safely. Or maybe I just got lucky. Chaik sat on the bed and pulled me close. Adana, I know you're scared. I'm terrified too. But we've come this far. We survived Emeka's betrayal. We survived the general's threats. We can survive this too. I wanted to believe him, but something felt wrong about the entire operation. Commissioner Adeyemi had been too eager, too confident. Detective Okonkwo had seemed nervous during our final briefing, and the general's casual mention of our marriage situation suggested he had sources inside law enforcement. What if it's a setup? I whispered. What if the police are using us to flush out the general's organization and they don't care if we get killed in the process? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. Right now, we focus on getting through tonight.
My phone rang.
Commissioner Adeyemi. Mrs. Okafor, just confirming that your husband is ready for tonight's operation. Our teams are in position, and everything looks good. He's ready, I said, though my voice cracked slightly. Excellent. Remember, once he enters Warehouse 7, he should follow the general's instructions exactly. Don't improvise. Don't ask unnecessary questions. Get the evidence we need and get out. And if something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. We have this completely under control. The confidence in his voice should have been reassuring, but it felt forced. Like an actor delivering lines he didn't quite believe. After hanging up, I walked Chike to his car. The Lagos evening was humid and oppressive, the air thick with the promise of rain. Traffic hummed in the distance, but our street felt unnaturally quiet. Kiss Kemi goodbye, I said. But don't make it seem final. We went inside where our daughter was finishing her rice and stew. She looked up with bright eyes when she saw her father. Daddy, will you read me a story when you get home? Of course, princess. What story do you want to hear? The one about the brave princess who saves the kingdom. Chike smiled, but I could see the tears he was holding back. That's a perfect choice. Daddy will tell you all about brave princesses when he gets home. Promise. I promise. But as he kissed her forehead, I saw him whisper something in her ear. She nodded solemnly, which meant he was giving her instructions for if something happened to him. At 10:30 p.m., Chike left for the port. I sat in our living room, staring at my phone and waiting for updates that might never come. Kemi had gone to bed, and Grace was watching television in her room, unaware of the drama unfolding. At 11:15 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Commissioner Adeyemi. Contact established. Operation proceeding as planned. At 11:45 p.m., cargo inspection in progress. All units in position. At 12:30 a.m., nothing. At 1 a.m., still nothing. By 1:30 a.m., I was pacing the house like a caged animal. Something was wrong. The operation should have been over by now, one way or another. I called Commissioner Adeyemi's number. It went straight to voicemail. I called Detective Okonkwo. Same thing. Panic rising in my throat, I tried Chike's phone. It rang once, then disconnected. At 2 a.m., headlights swept across our front windows. I ran to look outside, praying to see Chike's Mercedes pulling into the driveway. Instead, I saw 3 black SUVs surrounding our house. Men in tactical gear poured out of the vehicles, automatic weapons ready, moving with military precision toward our front and back entrances. These weren't police officers. The uniforms were wrong, the equipment too advanced, the coordination too perfect. My blood turned to ice as I recognized the lead figure directing the operation. It was the general, wearing body armor and holding what looked like a military-grade assault rifle. I ran upstairs to Kemi's room, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. She was fast asleep, her stuffed elephant clutched in her arms, completely innocent of the danger surrounding us. Grace, I hissed, shaking our house help awake. We need to leave. Right now. Madam? What's happening? Bad people are coming. Take Kemi to the back garden and hide in the tool shed. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe. What about you? I'll distract them. Give you time to get away. Grace looked terrified but nodded. She gently lifted the sleeping Kemi while I grabbed my phone and the emergency bag I'd prepared weeks ago when this nightmare first began. The word hit me like a physical blow. Somehow, they knew about the wire, about the police operation, which meant Chike was either dead or captured, and we were next. I crept to the back window and watched Grace carry Kemi toward the tool shed, staying low and moving in the shadows. At least they might have a chance to escape. Mrs. Okafor, I'm losing patience. Your husband tried to record our business meeting tonight. Very rude behavior from someone who owed us cooperation. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. They were coming up. I had perhaps 30 seconds to decide, surrender and hope they'd show mercy, or try to run and probably get shot in the process. But as I stood in my bedroom, looking at the wedding photos that represented 8 years of lies, I realized there was a third option. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized but hoped never to use. "Commissioner Adeyemi," I said when he answered. "Your operation failed. The general has my house surrounded, my husband is missing, and I'm about to be killed. I hope whatever you got out of this was worth destroying my family." "Adana, what are you talking about? The operation was successful. We arrested 6 members of the general's organization and seized 50 million naira worth of cocaine." "Then who's in my house right now?" There was silence on the line. "Commissioner?" I whispered. "Stay exactly where you are. Do not engage with anyone. We're sending units to your location immediately." But it was too late. My bedroom door exploded inward, and the general stepped through with 2 armed men behind him. "Good evening, Mrs. Okafor," he said calmly, as if we were meeting for tea. "I believe we have some unfinished business to discuss. This can't be how it ends. What happened to Chaik? Will the police arrive in time?" Hit like and subscribe to see if Adana and her family survive this final confrontation. I stood on Tarkwa Bay Beach at exactly 2 p.m., salt spray stinging my face as waves crashed against the rocky shoreline. The tiny recording device the police had given me felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, taped to my ribs beneath my flowing Ankara top. Commissioner Adeyemi's backup team was supposedly watching from multiple vantage points, but I felt utterly alone. The beach was nearly deserted except for a few fishermen mending nets in the distance. I'd taken the ferry from Tarzan Jetty like a tourist, but my hands had shaken the entire 15-minute journey. If this went wrong, if the general suspected I was working with the police, Kemi would grow up without either parent. "Mrs. Okafor." The voice came from behind me. I turned to see the general approaching, flanked by 2 men in casual clothes that couldn't quite hide the bulges of concealed weapons. He looked different in the afternoon sunlight, older, more weathered, but no less dangerous. "You came alone, as requested."
Good.
"What do you want?" I try to keep my voice steady. "Straight to business." "I appreciate that." He gestured for me to walk with him along the shoreline. "Your brother-in-law's unfortunate death has created some complications for my organization." "I'm sorry for your loss," I said, the words tasting like ash. He laughed. "Loss? Mrs. Okafor, Emeka Okafor's death solved several problems. He was a liability who had outlived his usefulness. But his absence has also created an opportunity." "What kind of opportunity?" "Your husband's import business has excellent connections throughout West Africa. Clean documentation, established relationships with customs officials, a reputation for legitimate trade. These are valuable assets." I felt the recording device pressing against my ribs and tried to keep him talking. "What are you proposing?" "A partnership. We provide capital and protection. You provide infrastructure and legitimate business cover. Everyone profits. And if we refuse?" The general stopped walking and turned to face me. His expression was pleasant, almost grandfatherly, but his eyes were cold as January rain. "Mrs. Okafor, I think you misunderstand our relationship. This is not a negotiation. Your brother-in-law owed us 30 million naira. That debt doesn't disappear simply because he's no longer able to pay it." My stomach dropped. Emeka's debts have nothing to do with us. In Nigeria, family debts are inherited. Your husband was Emeka's business partner and beneficiary. Legally and morally, the obligation transfers to him. That's not how the law works. Perhaps not in the courts. But we don't operate under the same legal framework as ordinary citizens. One of his men shifted slightly, his jacket falling open to reveal a gun. "The question is whether you prefer to resolve this matter through cooperation or other means." I thought about Commissioner Adeyemi's promise of protection and wondered where his backup team was. The beach felt impossibly isolated, despite the Lagos skyline visible across the water. What would this partnership involve exactly?
Simple.
Your husband resumes his import operations. We provide certain goods that need discreet transportation. You ask no questions about the contents of specific shipments, and we ensure your family's safety and prosperity. Drug trafficking? Among other things. Firearms, currency, occasionally people who prefer to travel without documentation. He said it so casually, he might have been discussing the weather. All very lucrative and completely invisible to law enforcement when properly managed. The recording device was getting everything, but I needed more details for the police to build their case. How would the logistics work? How much product are we talking about? What routes? The general studied me carefully, and for a moment I was terrified he could somehow sense the wire. You're asking very specific questions for someone who claims to be reluctant. I'm a businesswoman. If I'm going to risk my family's future, I need to understand exactly what I'm getting into. He nodded approvingly. Smart. Very smart. Your husband chose well when he married you. He paused. Even if that marriage wasn't quite legal at the time. The casual way he mentioned our marriage situation sent chills down my spine. How much did he know about our personal lives? We move approximately 50 million naira worth of product through Lagos ports each month, he continued. Cocaine from South America, heroin from Afghanistan, weapons from Eastern Europe. Your business would handle perhaps 20% of that volume. 10 million naira per month? Minimum. During busy seasons, much more. In exchange, you keep 5% of gross revenue plus protection for your family and business. 500,000 naira per month minimum. For a family facing financial ruin, it was almost impossible not to calculate how that money could solve our immediate problems. But I forced myself to remember the cost: people destroyed by drugs, weapons used to kill innocent victims, human trafficking operations that stole lives and dignity. There's one more thing, the general continued. A demonstration of good faith on your part. What kind of demonstration? Where is my husband? I demanded, surprised by the strength in my own voice despite the assault rifles pointed at my chest. The general smiled, but his eyes remained cold. Mr. Chaik is safe. Uncomfortable, perhaps, but safe. Whether he remains that way depends entirely on your cooperation over the next few minutes. The police know you're here. They're on their way. The police know what I want them to know. Did you really think we operated for years in Lagos without having sources inside law enforcement? He gestured for his men to search the room. Your husband's little recording session tonight was quite entertaining. Unfortunately, he was only recording members of my organization who were already planning to retire. My heart sank as I understood the implications. The entire operation had been orchestrated by the general. He'd fed the police low-level operatives while protecting his real organization, and used Chaik to identify which officers could be trusted and which couldn't. Commissioner Adeyemi is corrupt. Commissioner Adeyemi is ambitious. And ambitious men can always be bought, one way or another. The general moved closer, his presence filling the room like a toxic cloud. But you, Mrs. Okafor, you present a more interesting challenge. What do you want? Initially, I wanted your husband's business as a front for our operations. But tonight's events have shown me that you and your family are too dangerous to leave autonomous. You know too much, you've caused too much trouble, and you have an annoying tendency to involve law enforcement in private business matters. So you're going to kill us? Eventually. But first, you're going to help us clean up some loose ends. Starting with Detective Inspector Okonkwo. I stared at him in confusion. What about her? She's the one honest officer in this entire investigation. The one person who refused to be bought, who kept asking inconvenient questions, who might eventually cause real problems for our operations. He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo of Detective Okonkwo entering what looked like her apartment building. She lives alone in Surulere. Single woman. No family in Lagos. Very dedicated to her work. You want me to kill a police officer? I want you to make a phone call. Tell her you have urgent information about the general's location, information that requires an immediate meeting. Tonight. And then my associates will handle the rest. Detective Okonkwo will become another casualty of Lagos's dangerous crime problem, and the investigation into our organization will lose its most competent officer. I felt sick. I won't do it. Yes, you will. Because if you don't, I'll have your daughter brought up here, and we'll discuss the matter in front of her. The casual way he said it, the implicit threat to Kemi, made something snap inside me. All the fear, all the weeks of manipulation and terror, crystallized into pure rage. You bastard. She's 6 years old. She's a witness to conversations she shouldn't have heard and a liability to our future operations. Unless you make that phone call, she becomes a problem that needs solving. I realized that no matter what I did, none of us were walking away from this alive. The general had never intended to let us go. We knew too much, had caused too much damage to his organization. This was all just elaborate revenge before he eliminated every witness to his operations. But maybe, just maybe, I could save Detective Okonkwo and give her the information she needed to bring down his organization. I'll make the call, I said quietly. Smart woman. Use these exact words. He began dictating a script that would lure Detective Okonkwo to an isolated location where his men would be waiting. As he talked, I noticed one of his guards checking his phone and looking concerned. Sir, the guard interrupted. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Police units are surrounding the neighborhood. Multiple cars, tactical teams. They're not just responding to a call. This is a coordinated operation. The general's expression darkened. How many units? At least 20 vehicles. Lagos State Police, Federal SARS, even some military. The guard looked nervous. Sir, I think we need to evacuate. Not without completing our business here. The general turned back to me. It seems your friend Commissioner Adeyemi decided to play both sides after all. No matter. Make the call to Detective Okonkwo.
Now.
I dialed her number with trembling fingers, praying she wouldn't answer. But she picked up on the second ring. Mrs. Okafor? It's very late. Is everything all right? Detective, I need to meet with you immediately. I have information about the general's location and evidence that could shut down his entire organization. There was a pause. Where are you calling from? My house in Lekki. But we can't meet here. It's not safe. There's a 24-hour restaurant on Admiralty Way. Can you meet me there in 30 minutes? Mrs. Okafor, this sounds like a trap. Smart woman. I understand your concern, but people's lives are at stake. Including yours. The general knows about your investigation, and he's planning to. The general snatched the phone from my hand. Detective Okonkwo, this is the man you've been hunting. Mrs. Okafor is currently my guest, along with her family. If you want them to remain healthy, you'll come to 15 Admiralty Way immediately. And, detective? Come alone, or they all die. He hung up and smiled at me. Much more direct, don't you think? Outside, I could hear vehicles approaching, shouted commands, the organized chaos of a major police operation. But the general seemed unconcerned. Sir, his guard said urgently, we really need to leave. They're setting up a perimeter. Let them. This house has excellent sight lines and multiple exit routes. Besides, we have hostages now.
He looked at me.
Mrs. Okafor, you're going to call your daughter up here. It's time for a family reunion.
She's asleep.
Leave her alone. She won't be asleep much longer. The noise outside will wake her soon enough. He nodded to one of his men. Bring the child. No. I lunged toward the guard, but the general caught my arm with surprising strength. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Your family's suffering is entirely proportional to your level of cooperation. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. Shouted commands from outside growing closer. The sound of Kemi crying as strange men woke her from sleep. And then, cutting through all the chaos, a sound I'd been praying to hear. Chaik's voice, angry and defiant, somewhere in the house. Let go of me. Where is my family? The general said with satisfaction. The guest of honor has arrived. 2 guards dragged Chaik into the bedroom. His shirt was torn, his face bruised, but his eyes blazed with fury when he saw me. Adana, are you hurt? I'm fine. Where have you been? Tied up in a shipping container for the last 3 hours, wondering if you and Kemi were still alive." The general gestured for everyone to move toward the window. How touching. A family reunion just in time for the finale. Outside, floodlights had turned our neighborhood into daylight. Police vehicles lined the street, and I could see officers in tactical gear taking positions behind cars and trees. A helicopter circled overhead, its spotlight scanning the area. "Sir," one of the guards reported, "they're requesting communication. They want to negotiate." Of course they do. They always want to negotiate when they're outgunned and outmaneuvered. The general pulled out a megaphone. This should be interesting. But as he moved toward the window to address the police, I caught Chaik's eye and saw him glance meaningfully toward the bedroom closet. Following his gaze, I noticed that the door was slightly ajar, and through the gap, I could see Grace's terrified face. She and Kemi had never made it to the tool shed. They'd been hiding in our bedroom closet the entire time, listening to everything. Which meant my 6-year-old daughter had heard the general threaten to kill us all. The general raised the megaphone to address the police outside, completely unaware that his most dangerous enemy wasn't the tactical teams surrounding the house. It was a terrified mother who had finally run out of patience with men who threatened children. As he began to speak, I made my move. As the general raised the megaphone to his lips, I lunged forward and grabbed the lamp from our bedside table. Before anyone could react, I smashed it against his head with every ounce of strength I possessed. The heavy ceramic base shattered against his skull, and he crumpled to the floor, blood streaming from a gash above his ear. The megaphone clattered across the hardwood. "Gun!" Chaik shouted, diving toward one of the guards. Chaos erupted in our bedroom. The second guard swung his rifle toward me, but I was already moving, years of suppressed rage fueling my actions. I grabbed our wedding photo from the dresser, the fake wedding photo that had started all of this, and hurled it at his face. Glass exploded across his features as Chaik tackled the first guard, fighting desperately for control of his weapon. The second guard, temporarily blinded by blood and glass fragments, fired wildly. Bullets shattered our mirror, punched holes in the walls, destroyed everything that remained of our old life. But those gunshots had an unexpected effect. The police outside, hearing shots fired inside the house, launched their assault immediately. Windows exploded inward as tactical teams rappelled through our first-floor openings. The front door splintered under the impact of a battering ram. Smoke grenades filled the hallway with thick, choking clouds. "Police! Everyone down! Down now!" Through the chaos, I heard the closet door crash open and Grace's voice. "Run, Kemi. Run to the back garden." My daughter's terrified cry cut through the gunfire and shouting. I had to get to her, had to make sure she was safe. But the general, despite the blood pouring down his face, was rising to his knees, reaching for a pistol that had fallen from his belt. "Not today," I snarled, kicking the weapon away and driving my knee into his wounded skull. He collapsed again, this time staying down. Chaik had successfully wrestled the rifle away from the first guard, who now lay motionless on our bedroom floor. The second guard, still blinded and disoriented, stumbled toward the window and straight into the arms of police officers climbing through it. "Clear. Bedroom clear," someone shouted. "Suspect down." Multiple suspects in custody. Detective Inspector Okonkwo appeared in our shattered doorway, her service weapon drawn, surveying the destruction with wide eyes. "Mrs. Okafor? Are you injured?" "My daughter," I gasped. "She's somewhere in the house. 6 years old, pink pajamas." "We found her," another officer called from downstairs. "She's with an adult female in the back garden. Both safe, both unharmed." The relief hit me so hard I nearly collapsed. Chaik caught me, and we held each other in the ruins of our bedroom while police secured the scene around us. "It's over," he whispered. "It's finally over." But I wasn't ready to celebrate yet. "The general? Is he?" "Unconscious but breathing," Detective Okonkwo reported, kneeling beside the man who'd terrorized us for weeks. "He'll live to face trial." Along with Commissioner Adeyemi and several other corrupt officials we identified through your recordings. Commissioner Adeyemi was working with them? Not exactly. He was playing both sides, selling information to the highest bidder. Your recordings helped us sort out which officers could be trusted and which couldn't. She looked around at the destruction. Though I have to say, your direct approach was more effective than our careful police work. Over the next several hours, as crime scene investigators documented everything and paramedics treated our minor injuries, the full scope of the General's organization became clear. The recordings Chaik and I had made, combined with the evidence seized during the raid, exposed a network that stretched from Lagos to London, involving corrupt officials, international drug traffickers, and money laundering operations worth hundreds of millions of naira. Most importantly, Detective Okonkwo confirmed that all the evidence needed to invalidate my fake marriage had been preserved. Within weeks, the fraudulent certificate would be nullified, and Chaik and I could be legally married, for real this time. As dawn broke over Lagos, I sat in our back garden with Kemi on my lap, watching police remove the last of the General's men from our property. Grace had made tea with shaking hands, and we all sat together in the growing light, survivors of a nightmare that had finally ended. "Mama," Kemi asked quietly, "are the bad men really gone now?" "Yes, sweetheart. The bad men are gone, and they're never coming back. And Daddy's not going away anymore?" Chaik reached over and took her small hand. "Daddy's staying right here with you and Mama forever. I promise." "And Uncle Emeka?" I exchanged a look with Chaik. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that her uncle had tried to destroy her family and that his death, while tragic, had probably saved all of our lives? "Uncle Emeka made some very bad choices," I said carefully. "Sometimes when adults make bad choices, there are serious consequences. But that's not something you need to worry about, okay?" She nodded, seeming satisfied with that explanation. 3 months later, Chaik and I were married again, legally this time, in a small ceremony at the same church where we'd exchanged vows 8 years earlier. Kemi served as our flower girl, beaming with pride as she scattered rose petals down the aisle. Grace cried during the entire ceremony. Even Folklore attended, officially divorced from Chaik and genuinely happy to see us finally get our legal recognition. The General and his surviving associates were sentenced to life in prison. Commissioner Adeyemi received 25 years for corruption and conspiracy. Detective Inspector Okonkwo was promoted to head the new anti-corruption task force. Our import business, once all the legal complications were resolved, proved to be more successful than ever. Apparently, surviving an international criminal conspiracy was excellent marketing for reliability and discretion. But the real victory wasn't financial or legal. It was sitting in our rebuilt living room one evening, watching Kemi play with her dolls while Chaik read the newspaper, and I planned our weekend trip to the beach. It was the ordinary, peaceful moments that we'd almost lost forever. It was being a real family with real legal recognition and real trust between us. It was the knowledge that while Emeka's betrayal had nearly destroyed us, it had ultimately made us stronger. We'd learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about choice, loyalty, and the willingness to fight for the people you love. And most importantly, it was knowing that when life tries to bury you, sometimes you have to dig yourself out with nothing but determination, love, and the occasional well-aimed ceramic lamp. Some stories end with revenge. Others end with justice. Ours ended with redemption.